Israel-Gaza Iran War News Live Update. Senior Hezbollah commander in South Lebanon killed by Israeli strike. On Wednesday, Israel killed one of Hezbollah's top leaders in South Lebanon, provoking the Iran-backed group to launch rockets into Israel in their perilous battle. The Israeli military says it killed Hezbollah's Mohammed Nasser, head of a unit that fired toward Israel from southwestern Lebanon. Two security sources in Lebanon said Nasser, killed by an attack near Tyre in southern Lebanon, was one of the highest-ranking Hezbollah leaders killed in the fight. The Gaza war sparked fears of a wider, destructive conflict between the heavily armed enemies, leading U.S. diplomatic efforts to de-escalate. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said Israel was hammering Hezbollah extremely hard every day and would take whatever action, but a diplomatic agreement is preferred. After Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, Hezbollah fired at Israeli targets along the border, declaring sympathy for the Palestinians and promising to halt when Israel stopped its Gaza offensive. After the assassination, Hezbollah launched 100 Katyusha rockets at an Israeli military base and Iranian-made phallic missiles at another base in Kiryat Shmona near the Israeli-Lebanese border. Lebanon fired dozens of rockets into northern Israel, according to Channel 12. Casualties were unreported. Several northern Israeli areas heard air raid sirens, according to the Defense Ministry. Israel's military provided no number of missiles launched but said most fell in open regions, some were intercepted, and some fell in Kiryat Shmona. The rocket attack started several fires, but firefighters were putting them out. It said Israeli fighter planes hit a Hezbollah launcher that fired the rockets at Israel and two others after the rocket salvos. Lebanon's sources say Nasser oversaw Hezbollah's frontier activities. One source reported a second Hezbollah fighter and civilian slain. Hezbollah fired its largest barrages of drones and missiles in retribution for the June Israeli strike on Taleb Abdullah, a prominent commander, sources claimed. Nasser was of the same rank and responsibility. The Israeli military said Nasser and Abdullah served as two of the most significant Hezbollah terrorists in southern Lebanon. Senior Hezbollah politician Hassan Fadlallah said Nasser knew he was a target but had not left the battlefield in 9 months. He added Hezbollah will punitively respond to Israel for its crime so that this enemy learns that the arm of the resistance is long. Tens of thousands of people have fled both sides of the border due to fighting. Reuters reports that Israeli attacks in Lebanon have killed over 300 Hezbollah fighters and 87 civilians. Israel reports 18 soldiers and 10 civilians killed by Lebanon fired. On Wednesday, Israel launched fresh strikes on Gaza as talks for a truce with Hamas resumed. After weeks of little public diplomacy, mediators Egypt and Qatar received a Hamas answer to a request to release Gaza hostages and end the conflict. On behalf of Mossad, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said Israel is analyzing the paper. Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. have failed for months to reach a truce and release 120 Gaza hostages. Hamas demands an end to the fighting and Israeli evacuation from Gaza in any arrangement. Israel will only accept interim truces until Hamas is defeated. Mossad said, Israel is analyzing the response and will respond to the mediators, without elaboration. Hamas, the militant group that administers Gaza, said its leader Ismail Haniyeh conducted talks with Qatari and Egyptian mediators and Turkish officials about ending the war. The New York Times reported that Israel's top generals favor a Gaza ceasefire even if it puts Hamas in control, increasing the military's divide with Netanyahu, who opposes a truce that would allow Hamas to survive. The report cited 6 current and former Israeli security officials as saying the commanders believe a ceasefire is the best way to free the remaining Israeli hostages and that overstretched Israeli forces, low on munitions, need to regroup in case a wider war with Lebanon's Hezbollah breaks out. On Wednesday, Israel assassinated key Hezbollah leader Mohammed Nasser in South Lebanon, provoking the Iran-backed group to launch rockets into Israel in their perilous battle. After the Gaza war, conflicts with Lebanon have heightened concerns about a wider, disastrous battle between the heavily armed enemies, spurring U.S. diplomatic efforts to de-escalate. Israel claims Hamas gunmen entered southern Israel on October 7, killing 1,200 people and taking 250 prisoners back to Gaza, starting the Gaza conflict. The Gaza Health Ministry reports that Israel's retaliatory onslaught has killed nearly 38,000 Palestinians and destroyed the highly built-up coastal territory. A stabbing killed an Israeli soldier and wounded a second inside a mall in Carmel, northern Israel, authorities said. According to Ynet News, the deceased assailant was from Nahaf, an Arab settlement in Israel. Residents say families sleep on the road. Israeli attacks in central and northern Gaza killed at least 12 individuals, health officials reported. Residents reported that Israeli soldiers launched more attacks in the south overnight amid heavy fighting with Palestinian terrorists. Northern Gaza battle killed a 21-year-old captain, according to Israel's military. In central Rafah, tanks have taken many districts and marched west and north in recent days. Fighting continued overnight in 2 locations. The Israeli military says it attacked Rafah, removed military installations, and killed Palestinian militants. An Israeli attack damaged a UN school in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, where Palestinian refugees huddled. Gaza officials did not report injuries. As panicked parents searched for their children and others fled, wailing, smoke ascended from the rubble. "Our situation is unfair. We can't take it," one woman stated. The UN claimed Tuesday's Israeli evacuation order to Khan Yunis and Rafah was the greatest since October's 1.1 million person decree in the north of the territory. Many Palestinians sought cover. Khan Yunis inhabitants reported lack of tents led several families to sleep on the road. The Gaza Health Ministry reported that an Israeli airstrike on a Khan Yunis house killed Hassan Hamdan, head of Nasser Medical Complex's burns and plastic surgery department, and his family. Reuters couldn't verify the ministry's claims because Israel's army didn't respond. Family and patient evacuations occurred at the Gaza European Hospital, the last operating hospital in the area. On Tuesday, an Israeli defense spokesman said hospital workers and patients may stay. At the end of May, U.S. President Joe Biden announced a ceasefire plan that would gradually release Israeli detainees in Gaza and withdraw Israeli soldiers over 2 phases. The final phase includes liberating Palestinian detainees, rebuilding Gaza, and returning hostages' remains.